We find out about our own unspecialness, and in a flush of innocence, we feel quite glad. If we're not special, then we might not be alone. Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby, and today we're going to be starting on a sci-fi reading vlog, which I know a sci-fi vlog is something that I haven't done in a while. I've just been in such a big sci-fi mood ever since the beginning of the year. After reading The Ministry of Time earlier this month, it really just sparked this love of reading sci-fi in me again, and so I thought that I would take advantage of that mood and read more sci-fi. I do think that sci-fi is a genre that I do really love, but I'm just very particular when it comes to the kinds of things that I like reading in sci-fi. I think when it comes to my specific kind of taste in sci-fi, I've discovered that I like books that feel really light on the sci-fi elements, but books that talk about like space exploration or time travel or aliens or anything that's like slightly futuristic, but we're still following a cast of human characters, because I feel like once it starts to lean more into like sci-fi fantasy, that's where I start to like lose interest with sci-fi books. I mean, I do like stories that take place in space, but I prefer stories that take place in space that still involve humans. I thought I would show you this little chart of some sci-fi books that I have enjoyed in the past. I mean, all of these books are some of my favorite books of all time. Project Hail Mary, the year that I read it, was actually my #1 favorite book of 2021, and I've enjoyed most of the books that I've read from Andy Weir. I also do love most of the sci-fi that I've read from Blake Crouch and from Emily St. John Mandel, and I would categorize all of these books as being pretty light sci-fi. But the 4 books that I'm going to be reading in today's video are all books that were recently nominated at the Goodreads Choice Awards. All 4 of these books were nominated in the sci-fi category, but none of them won because Ministry of Time was actually the winner of the sci-fi category. And I did recently read this book for a different reading vlog, so I will have that link down below if you want to hear my thoughts on Ministry of Time. But I just thought because that book was so successful for me, because I had such a fun time with it, I thought maybe it would be fun to explore the other books that intrigued me on the Goodreads Choice Awards list. And these 4 books were the ones that I decided to read for this video because I thought these would be the ones I'd have the highest chance of enjoying. So one of the books I'll be reading for today's video is Yours for the Taking by Gabrielle Korn. This is an author that I've just been really curious to check out for a long time. All I know about this sci-fi book is that it's kind of futuristic and that it's queer. It takes place in the year 2050, and we're following these characters who are living on a planet that is no longer going to be safe to live on, and this one just takes place in a futuristic New York, which sounds like it could be right up my alley. I'm also going to be reading Orbital for this video, and this is a book that I knew absolutely nothing about, but I just keep seeing this book everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of people really enjoying this one, and this book is the winner of the Booker Prize in 2024, so I was like, that's gotta be saying something right there. The only thing I know about this one premise-wise is that it says Orbital snapshots one day in the lives of 6 women and men who are traveling through space. I'm also gonna be reading Beautyland. This is a sci-fi book that I've been curious about for such a long time. Like, I've been really wanting to read this one. I know my friend Allie from All I Do Is Read really enjoyed this one. I think it was her #1 favorite book of 2024. Ever since seeing her glowing review of it, I've just been extra excited to check this book out. And all I know about this is that we're following from the perspective of this young girl who either believes that she's an alien or she actually is an alien. And then it's about how she gets this fax machine that enables her to contact her extraterrestrial relatives, and she thinks that they are beings who have sent her to report on the oddities of Earthlings. This sounds like everything that I could love in a sci-fi book, so I'm hoping for the best. And then I'm also going to be reading Sky Full of Elephants, which this one has got to be like a 5-star prediction for me. Like, I've been so excited to read this one because I think the premise of this one sounds especially unique and especially interesting, because this one says, in a world without white people, what does it mean to be black? And we're following this black man who wakes up in this world where like one day all of the white people in the world are just gone. And then I think this is a story about how he's connecting with his daughter who is biracial. And I'm really excited to read this one because this sounds like the exact kind of speculative sci-fi that I really like. Like, what would the world or what would our society look like if this one thing happened? And yeah, these are all the books that are on my TBR for this video. I'm very excited to see which books end up being a win for me. I also did make this chart to show you some of the sci-fi books that are on my radar. Like, these are books that I do know about. I've had them on my TBR and I do think they could be right up my alley. So you'll have to let me know if you would like to see a future vlog where I read some of these sci-fi books. And before we do jump into the reading vlog, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Heyday. And y'all, I'm so excited to be working with Heyday. Like, you have no idea. This is a game that I've been playing since I was a teenager. I am a huge Heyday stan, okay? So Heyday is a game that is free to download on iOS and Android devices, and it's a game where you can build and design your perfect farm from the ground up. And I love the way that you can customize everything in this game, because you can customize the way that your farm looks, where you want everything to go, the decorations on your farm. You can also customize the name of your farm, and if you were wondering, mine is called Mystic Falls, because of course it is. I love that with Heyday you can enjoy relaxing gameplay, and there is is literally no stress involved because you never have to worry about your crops dying on hay day. You can grow, harvest, and trade at your own pace, which is something that I really like. You can check in whenever it works best for you. I love that you can care for the adorable farm animals like your chickens and your cows, and then you can even add playful pets. Like, you know, on my farm I have a few dogs, I have a few cats, I have some horses. The more pets the better, that's what I say. You can create and sell homemade goods, and I feel so satisfied every time I complete a truck order because I know that it's like helping out their little town. And I also love the community aspect of this game because you can join a friendly community to trade, share tips, and compete in weekly events. I just really love playing Hay Day in bed at the end of a long day. I can play this game while listening to an audiobook because it doesn't require too much brain power to take care of my little farm, and that's what I love about it. I just think when the world can be a little chaotic and crazy, I just really appreciate my time playing this cute little cozy game. You can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to download Hay Day and get your reward. You'll get some extra cute items to personalize your farm. And the game is free, so there's really no reason not to check it out. I've enjoyed playing this game for years, and I really think that you would love it too. Thank you so much to Hay Day for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the reading vlog. Hello, I wanted to update you because I have started reading Yours for the Taking. Last night I got all the way up to part 3, which puts me at about like 90 pages into it. When I was flipping through this book last night, I realized that there are like 11 different parts in this book or something crazy like that. But this book has been so wildly fascinating so far. Like, I'm already really invested in this. And in this story, it's taking place in the year 2050. Climate change has like really impacted the earth so much to the point where like they don't know if it's going to be safe to live on earth for much longer. And so in this story, we're following this woman named Jacqueline Melender, who's like a reclusive billionaire. And she's a huge women's rights advocate. And she's a really big feminist. And it's really interesting because it says, thanks to a generous donation, she's just become the director of The Inside, being built on the bones of Manhattan. And so basically they're working on this thing called The Inside that is essentially going to be kind of like a space shuttle or like something that's going to provide safety from like the outside world. But the story's been really interesting so far because we're following from the perspective of 3 different women. One of them that we get introduced to is this woman named Ava, and her girlfriend, you know, like they both applied to be accepted into this Inside thing, but then only Ava got in. And so like her girlfriend wasn't able to get in. So that's kind of like an interesting scenario that you're reading about with her. And then we're also following this trans woman named Shelby, and she is kind of working as like the full-time assistant for this billionaire woman, Jacqueline. And then we also follow this character named Olympia, and Olympia is this black queer woman. She was adopted when she was really young, and she's actually been like a medical student for the last like 10 years. I think it's been really interesting to get the perspectives of these 3 specific women, and I like that the story is being told from their point of view because I think it is really interesting to get different experiences. Like, you get the experience of somebody who's just applying to like be a part of this, but then you also get people who are like working very close with Jacqueline. This book does not mention though in the premise like what the main element of the story is about, and like I was so taken off guard by it that I was like, wait, like that's what this story is gonna be about? Like, absolutely sign me the fuck up, like let's go. I think the concept for this book is so interesting, but I was like reading the description, and like the description is very detailed, but it doesn't really tell you like what this story's actually about. So like it's really hard to talk about this book because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but like this is so fascinating. Like, this is exactly what I like in sci-fi. Like, I love shit like this. It says that it's a mesmerizing story of queer love, betrayal, chosen family, and an unflinching indictment of white corporate feminism, and it holds a mirror to our own world in all of its beauty and horror. Oh my god, this just sounds like exactly the kind of book that I was in the mood for right now. Like, I'm already loving this so much. Like, I'm loving the vibes of it. I've already started like tabbing and like wanting to annotate in this because I am just so invested already. So I think I'm going to try to read some more of this today. As I'm filming this right now, it's actually the day before my birthday, so I do have dinner plans with my family later tonight. I'm hoping that I can read a little bit more before then, and this weekend is going to be so crazy because tonight I'm going out to dinner with my family for my birthday, and we're having like a little bit of a celebration at the house, and then tomorrow I'm going to be going to Vancouver for the first time with my sister, and so like that should be really fun. We're going to stay the night in Vancouver. I don't know how much reading I'm going to be able to get done this weekend, but we shall see. I'm excited. it is a little bit later in the afternoon, but I have still been reading Yours for the Taking, and I just hit part 7 of the book, so I'm about 200 pages in at this point, and this story has still been really fascinating. Something about this story that I wasn't expecting is that the timeline of this story is moving so quickly. Years and years and years are just flying by in every single one of these parts, because the story started in the year of like 2050, I think, and then now in part 7, the year is 2078. So like we are just flying through the years, which I am really liking about it, but it's making the book feel fast-paced, but also I can't help but wish that like some of these years got a little bit more fleshed out as the story would go. And I really like in this book how we are following a pretty big cast of characters. I mean, we're still following like our main 3 is, you know, Ava and then Olympia and Shelby are like the main 3 that we're following, and we're also following the story of this woman, Jacqueline, who's like running this whole thing. But I am liking that we are getting a few other perspectives as well that are like really interesting characters to the story. It is also interesting because some of these characters do still have contact with like people on Earth. So like those parts are really interesting when they get to communicate with the people on Earth and you kind of get to hear like how the state of the world is and what they're dealing with down on Earth. And it's been like really sad, you know, to imagine like the Earth being this way. There have even been like a few plot twists in the storyline or things that I wasn't expecting to be explored. A lot of these topics are being explored, and oh god, I wish I could talk about this more without spoiling you, because I don't want to say like what this book is actually, you know, about or like what's happening in the plot, because it doesn't say anything, so I don't want to like mention it. But like I'm just really loving this so much. There's even like just subtle hints at like romance happening in this, and the queer romance is just so good. There's also a lot of talk in this book about, you know, identifying as a queer person. There's a lot of trans characters, a lot of non-binary characters. So there's definitely like a really big cast of queer characters in this book, which I definitely appreciate. And I'm just really enjoying this so much. I think I'm gonna try to finish it tonight. I think I have about like 100 pages left. So once I get home from dinner tonight, I think I'm gonna try to finish it. And right now I'm gonna be going out to dinner with my family, like I mentioned. We're going out for my birthday, so I decided to dress up a little bit. And I can't wait. We're gonna go to one of my favorite restaurants. It should be a good time. It is now the next day, and today is my 30th birthday. How crazy is that? But I wanted to update you because last night I finished listening to the audiobook for Yours for the Taking, and I really enjoyed this one. I don't know, I was kind of surprised. I mean, I do think the last bit of this book, it started to lose me just a little bit, because I do think this book was starting to get a little bit like heavy-handed with its message, but I also like fully support this book's message. Then I thought like the very end was so like beautifully written. I don't know, like the ending of this book really worked for me, like that final like chapter, like I really loved that. I didn't realize it at the time, but I do think that this author wrote a sequel or like maybe a prequel for this book called The Shutouts, and this is a book that I actually just picked up from my bookstore the other day, and I didn't know that these two were like part of the same series, or maybe it's just that this one also takes place in the same universe as Yours for the Taking. Like I'm glad that I didn't read this one first, because like I didn't know that it was a sequel, and I just got my hands on this one recently, so I definitely do want to read The Shutouts very soon. I think overall I'm probably going to give this one 4 stars. Like I don't know, I had a really good time with it. I do think that this book felt very, you know, timely and very relevant. I mean, the fact that this doesn't take place that far into the future, I mean, it's mostly taking place in like the 2050s, which is only like 25 years away at this point. I mean, this does feel like a very like drastic and like exaggerated look at our future, but I honestly don't think it's like that far off, and that's what makes it so scary. But I do think that there are so many relevant conversations in this book, you know, not only talking about climate change, but talking about like feminism, but then also how like your feminism can be skewed when you're like a really rich white woman, and how like maybe for those people their perception of like what feminism isn't even really accurate. There is a lot of talk, you know, about the white corporate feminism, which I do think was explored very well in this book. It was even a little bit heavy-handed at times, but I do think it was a good message. And there was so much talk in this book just about like gender in general, you know, and like what that means for trans people, what that means for non-binary people. I really liked this. I really did connect with the characters. Like one of my only like critiques of this book, I guess, is that I do wish some of the character development got a little bit more fleshed out, because I do feel like the storyline is just moving at a very quick pace. And some scenes I wish we just got to like sit in it just a little bit longer. If I had to compare this book to anything though that I've enjoyed before, I would say that this book to me, it kind of feels like Barbie meets The End of Men. And I know that seems like really random shit to compare this to, but that's kind of like the vibes that I was getting from this book. And so I'm glad that I've found something that like really works for me, especially because this author does have, you know, another sci-fi book that I can check out immediately after this. But anyway, oh my gosh, I'm about to head to Vancouver with my sister. I'm so excited. We're just gonna explore the city today. And so I will see you when I get back home this weekend and start reading the next thing. Has been about 48 hours since I last updated you. I got home from Vancouver. Me and my sister had such an incredible time. Vancouver was so cool. You know, it was my first time ever in the city. We went book shopping. I went to 3 different bookstores and I bought a few things, including the book that I've just started today, which is called Orbital by Samantha Harvey. But I did want to update you because I am now 42% of the way through the book. I'm about 86 pages in. This one's only about like, I don't know, like 207 pages. It's actually kind of short. And this book is so fascinating so far. Like, I don't really know how to describe this to you because the writing in this book is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, I feel like this is some of the most beautiful writing that I've read in a long time. There's just something so thoughtful and like vivid about the writing. And this is definitely one of those books that leans more into the territory of like, it's just a thought-provoking kind of story. I don't know, we're just following these 6 different astronauts who are traveling through space and they're currently orbiting the planet. And it's kind of strange because with this book, I feel like it definitely reads more just kind of like literary fiction as opposed to like sci-fi, because it feels very like just slice of life in a way, but it also is not very character driven at all. So like, I don't really know how to describe this because like we do follow these, you know, 6 different characters, but the story isn't really about the characters. It's more just about like their experience in space and like the way that they're missing Earth and like reflecting on their time in space and just kind of like, I don't know, these thoughtful discussions about like how the human body reacts when it's in space for a long time. There's not really much of a plot or like a story really happening in this book, but it's more just like a lot of really thoughtful and interesting conversations and ideas. I mean, like, I love there was a whole section talking about like what really is a day, because, you know, like when you're an astronaut, your body is on a 24-hour clock because you're a human being and you're used to like the time on Earth. But when you go up into space, you don't really have that same kind of schedule, you know, like you don't really have that 24-hour clock anymore. And so it kind of talks about how their bodies have to adjust to this new life in space, and also just kind of talking about in general like how lonely it can be to be in space. I loved this whole conversation talking about how like people become astronauts because they love to explore, when it said all your dreams of adventure and freedom and discovery culminate in the aspiration to become an astronaut, and then you get up here and you are trapped and like you spend your days packing and unpacking things, you fiddle in a laboratory and go nowhere but round and round with the same old thoughts going round and round with you. Just fascinating to me, you know, because I think that's so true that most people probably become astronauts because they have that itch, like they just want to to go and explore. But then like that's so true how like the actual job of being an astronaut is a lot more tedious and repetitive than they probably thought it would be. I also just loved the conversations in this book talking about how like Earth is like not the only planet that matters and like humans are not that special or not nearly as special as we think. When it said maybe it's hard being human and maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's hard to shift from thinking your planet is safe at the center of it all to knowing in fact it's a planet of normalish size and normalish mass rotating about an average star in a solar system of average everything. And it says maybe human civilization is like a single life. When it says we find out about our own unspecialness and in a flush of innocence we feel quite glad. If we're not special then we might not be alone. God, the writing in this is just so stunning. All these thoughtful ideas about like if there's other life, you know, out there, and it says we didn't ask to be so completely unjustly darkly alone. Or even the way that this book like talks about the moon. I swear this book is just romanticizing everything about space in a way that's like really beautiful to me. Over 50 years without a human foot on its back, our moon, and does it turn its bright side in longing to the earth in the hope of the human's return? Does it yearn to be known? Like, God, that is some beautiful writing right there. There was also a really great conversation between these two astronauts about like somebody questioning like how can you be an astronaut and believe in religion, and then the other astronaut was like how can you be an astronaut and not believe in religion. And they kind of had this really great conversation that I thought was a very thought-provoking conversation because I'm not a religious person myself, but I do think that it is very interesting to see how characters respond in conversations like this. And so far I'm really enjoying this book. I don't know if you can tell, I've been like annotating a lot. I've been like writing in here, highlighting different passages because there are just so many thought-provoking and interesting passages in this. It's just hard for me to describe this book because, you know, I don't feel attached to the characters at all, and this is definitely not the kind of story where I think you're supposed to feel attached to the characters. Like the characters are just there for the author to convey like what this human experience is like for these astronauts in space. And this story just feels very human, you know, like this story is just reminding us like how small we are in like the grand scheme of things and how like we are the children of like Mother Earth. Like one of the first quotes in the book when it says the earth is a mother waiting for her children to return, full of stories and rapture and longing. Like that's so beautiful. It's just so stunning. So I'm personally loving this book so much already just because of the writing. Like I think the writing is so beautiful. It's so thought-provoking. It's just so well written. But I can see how people might struggle to like connect with this story overall because like the characters aren't very strong. This author is doing the thing where like there's no quotations around the dialogue, so like I can see how that would be annoying, but honestly like there's such little amount of dialogue in this book anyways, so I'm having a really fun time with this one so far. I'm really impressed with the writing style. It's just so interesting.
Asking for a friend who has gone off the deep end. I know it's late, but we said we would meet here. Why don't you come down? One little sip of air will do you good, and you better believe it. You've been shut indoors for no reason. I could use a friend right now. Can we be friends for now? Yeah. Heart on each side, only reflections of
Hello, it is now a few hours later, but I wanted to update you because I just finished reading Orbital and I really liked this. I don't know, this book was like nothing like what I was expecting it to be, and I still don't really know how to verbalize my feelings on this book, but I ended up really loving this. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I think for me, you know, like I am such a character bitch. Like I really love having good characters that I feel like I can connect with, and I think that that's where this book kind of falls short for me, is that there are not really any characters. Like you're following these 6 astronauts and I feel like you get some glimpses into their life, but you don't get to really like know these characters in a way that made me like connect with the story. Oh, I feel like this book had so much potential though to be a 5-star for me because the writing is just absolutely gorgeous, and this book is so thought-provoking in a way that I personally really love in sci-fi books. I feel like in a lot of ways, you know, this book is just a love letter to Earth, and this is exactly the kind of shit that I love in sci-fi, where it's just kind of like thoughtfulness about like why humanity is the way we are. I mean, I love that, you know, the description of this book says they begin to ask what is life without Earth and what is Earth without humanity, because that's like basically what this book is about. I was looking for some other reviews on Goodreads because I don't know why I'm struggling to like verbalize how I feel about this book, but I would definitely agree with Renee's review when she said that even though this book is marketed as a novel, it reads more like an extended essay, a sort of existential musing on life, our planet, space travel, and our humbling smallness in the scope of things, which I really appreciated about this. I love in Carrie's review where she said this is a book about space travel and the beauty of Earth from afar. And then I also wanted to shout out Emma's review because I feel like she captured this perfectly when she said a gorgeously written book that is trying in its gentle way through beautiful prose to express how fragile and beautiful our Earth is, spinning in a cosmos that is vastly huge. We are both incredibly special and also incredibly tiny next to this infinity. Like, wow, Emma, I could not have said it better myself. That is the perfect review for this book. One of the lines that I ended up underlining that I really liked was when it said, "Aren't we so insecure, a species that we're forever gazing at ourselves and trying to ascertain what makes us different?" And the quote that's like, "We matter greatly and not at all," because I think that's so true and that like perfectly captures the vibe of this book. I'm just really glad that I love this because I do love a novel like this that's kind of like a light sci-fi, but it's more just like thoughtful and it's really like about humanity and like our connection with the earth and like why we should be taking care of the earth because like it's the only place that we can call home. It was just thoughtful, it was interesting. Like I really do think if the characters were written in a way where I could really connect with these characters, oh my god, this would have been like a 5-star new all-time favorite. I really loved annotating this book too because I feel like this is a story that I could come back to. I mean, I know I just blasted through this entire thing in like one night, but I really think that this is a book that you can like take your time with, you know, because I feel like there's a lot to digest when you're reading this book. I kept having to like pause the audiobook so that I could annotate and then really like stop and take a minute to like think about what the author's trying to say and just really like sit in it for a second, you know, because there's a lot of really thought-provoking and interesting things being said in this book. And so I do think that even though this one's really short, you know, it's only 200 pages, I do think that this one is a good one to like take your time with, you know? But I'm just so impressed with this. I'm so glad this sci-fi vlog is going so well. Thank you so much. Thanks, you too. Hello, good afternoon. It is now the next day and I have started reading Beautyland, so I thought I would update you because I'm about 90 pages in. I actually just hit what looks like it's part 2 of this book called Massive Star. I started reading this while I was at the gym this morning. I just decided that I wanted to go to the gym this morning and then I realized when I got outside I was like, oh my god, it's so frosty out this morning. Like it was really cold. It was only like 27 degrees, so my windshield was like completely frozen and I was like, oh my god, did I make a mistake? But I was really glad though to actually go to the gym this morning and like get ahead of the day. I always feel more accomplished when I go to the gym in the morning. But anyway, I am about 90 pages into this one so far, and I'm really enjoying this so far. In this story, we're following this character named Adina, and for most of the first, you know, section of this book, we are following this character named Adina from the time that she's born. Part 1 of this story is from the time that she was born up until she's about a teenage girl. And so most of the time we are reading about her when she's like a pretty young kid. And Adina, in her mind, she believes that she's like an alien. It's kind of like unclear to me at this point, to be honest, if she's actually an alien or if she just thinks that she's an alien. I'm not entirely sure, but we are kind of following from her perspective as a kid. And something that I'm really liking about this is that we kind of get to see her trying to understand humanity and like understanding the things that humans do and like why humans are so weird. In the description of this book, it says, as a child, she recognizes that she is different. She possesses knowledge of a faraway planet. It says the arrival of a fax machine enables her to contact her extraterrestrial relatives, beings who have sent her here to report on the oddities of Earthlings. And so like throughout the story, we do get to see like little things that she is faxing to her like extraterrestrial relatives. And I really like those bits because I find them to be very funny. One of the ones that I just read is when she said, human beings did not think their lives were challenging enough, so they invented roller coasters. A roller coaster is a series of problems on a steel track. Upon encountering real problems, human beings compare their lives to riding a roller coaster, even though they invented roller coasters to be fun things to do on their days off. Her commentary is just really funny, and I love books like this that kind of point out like the weird things about humanity. So I am enjoying that aspect of this a lot. I think the tone of this book, it feels a lot more like literary fiction or just like contemporary fiction. And I think the only like sci-fi thing about it is that this girl thinks that she's an alien, which is kind of reminding me of some of my favorite books. You know, like The Humans by Matt Haig is a book that definitely comes to mind. It kind of has a similar vibe to it where you're following from the perspective of an alien who's like observing humanity and like all of the weirdness that is humanity. It's also kind of reminding me of the book Earthlings, but like a much more mild, normal, tame version of that book. Because the book Earthlings is like one of the most disturbing, like shocking books that I've ever read in my life. And this is not really like that. I mean, this is definitely more like slow burn, kind of like literary fiction vibe, but just the way that we're following this like little girl who also thinks that she's an alien, because that's definitely something that happened in Earthlings as well. So it does kind of remind me of that. But so far I am enjoying this one. If I had one thing to complain about at this moment in time, it would be that there are no real chapter breaks. I mean, part 2 of this book, this is like the first real like chapter break. Like it does look like the book is broken up into a few parts, but otherwise like there are no chapter breaks throughout this, so it's a little bit intense. But there are tons of moments like this where it's like broken up into like different paragraphs and things like that, but there are no real chapter breaks. But I am listening to this one on audio as well, so I don't even actually notice how long the chapters are, but I just thought it was something that I would point out. But I am really liking the vibes of this so far. I mean, I do love the trope of like an alien kind of like observing humanity and like judging humanity for how like ridiculous we are. So far it's going well. It's feeling more kind of like literary fiction and like coming of age than I was expecting it to feel. Hello, it is many hours later. It's literally 10:30 at night and I just finished reading Beautyland, and like tell me why this book took me all day to read. Like I started this morning at the gym at like 10 a.m. and then I just kept setting it aside all day. Oh my god, you know, this kills me, but I think I'm gonna have to give this book around like 3 stars. I think that this book was just okay. I don't think that this book really resonated with me the way that it seems to be resonating with a lot of people. You know, I see a lot of people got really like emotionally attached to this book and I just didn't really feel that way about it. I mean, maybe it's because, you know, maybe I did go into this book with the wrong expectations, because I was expecting this to be a little bit more sci-fi, but it really did read like a, you know, contemporary kind of coming of age literary fiction. I was really expecting this book to like get more weird. You know, like I really would have enjoyed this book more, I think, if it had gotten a little bit more weird, or maybe even went in a direction where it felt more horror or something. Like, I don't know. I think it's like this book has a really interesting concept, but the plot itself was just kind of boring me after a while. I mean, don't get me wrong, this book definitely had its moments where there were like some really great quotes, some really like profound things that this author was saying, and I also loved the way that this character described New York. One of the quotes that I liked too is when she said, "The ego of the human male is by far the most dangerous aspect of human society." Another one of my favorite quotes was when she said, "The human lifespan was perfectly designed to be brief, but to at times feel endless. A set of years that pass in a minute, eternity in an afternoon." Like, I really liked the way that this author and this character would describe the feeling of time passing. There's a lot of great quotes in this book, and I also liked the fact that we followed this character through a huge chunk of her life. You know, like it wasn't just when she was a kid. We kind of do get to follow her through most of her adulthood as well, which I did really like. You know, I do like books like this where you get to follow a character through decades of their life, but I also think that any book that I would want to compare this to, I just didn't love this nearly as much as I love these other books. Like The Humans by Matt Haig, I would definitely recommend, if you loved this and you haven't read The Humans by Matt Haig, I would definitely recommend that book over this one. It has a very similar concept, but I just think the concept in The Humans was done more to my taste. I also think if you enjoyed this book, you might also enjoy Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen, because that one's another one where like you have a character who's like really obsessed with space, but it really is more like coming of age, kind of contemporary feeling, literary fiction kind of vibe. And it also feels like you're following a character who's like somewhere on the spectrum. Like that's the vibe that I got from both of these books. Even though Interesting Facts About Space is definitely more of a contemporary book, but I would say there's just as much sci-fi in this one as there is in this. But yeah, overall, I can see why a lot of people are really connecting with this one. I just wouldn't classify this one as sci-fi, personally. I wouldn't. But I think this one's about 3 stars for me. Tomorrow, I'm excited because I'm going to be starting on Sky Full of Elephants, which this one is a 5-star prediction for me. I've been very excited to read this book for a while, so hopefully this one goes well. good afternoon. It is the next day, but I wanted to update you because I have started on Sky Full of Elephants. I started reading this one this morning and I just went to the library to pick up some of my library holds, and I'm down here at the park because I'm meeting my mom here in about like 30 minutes to go on a walk with her. But I thought I would, you know, chill in my car and read for a little bit before we went on a walk. And so far, I'm only 70 pages into this book, but it is already feeling like it could be a 5-star. Like, I am just loving this so much. The writing in this book is already so good. In this story, we're following this character named Charlie, and in this world, there was a situation that happened where like all of the white people in the world died at the same time. And it was in a very interesting and like unique kind of way, because basically every single white person in the world walked towards the closest body of water and like drowned themselves in the closest body of water. I just find that to be such a unique and kind of creepy way of like white people just like taking themselves out like that, and like they have no idea why this happened and why it only affected white people. Now the story's taking place about a year later, where like this character Charlie, he was this black man who was actually in prison before, and now he's a professor, and the story's kind of following what's going on in his world about a year after these events. And you know, Charlie's kind of talking about like how the world looks different now, you know, like now that white people aren't in it. And like not only is that concept like just like absolutely fascinating for a novel, like I love shit like this that's like, what if this happened? Like how would the world look if this one thing happened? And I think that this is so fascinating. I'm loving the writing so much, and I'm already like really connecting to Charlie as a character. But something that makes the story even better and adds another layer to this story is that he has a daughter, and he has this daughter named Sydney, and she's only now just reaching out to him because his daughter is half black and half white, and she's been raised by her white family. So we do get Sydney's perspective in this book as well, and we kind of get to see in a flashback chapter how she like witnessed her entire family, you know, like her mom and her dad who like raised her, and then her siblings just like walking into the water and like killing themselves. And so she's been kind of left as like an orphan basically because she doesn't have any of her white family anymore. And so she calls him to ask for help with something, and he didn't even know if his daughter had survived, and he has never actually met his daughter. Like he doesn't even know her name because of circumstances that had happened when she was younger. But like it's so interesting to get both of their perspectives because they both have such unique point of views on the world that they're living in now. You know, because even though it's horrifying, you know, Charlie is actually like really enjoying the way that the world is now, because before, you know, he was incarcerated, and he talks a lot about how like he never had some of the freedoms that he does now, that white people are no longer in the world. And so like the new world has mostly benefited him and like improved his life, but then Sydney almost has like the complete opposite perspective. And like because she is half white, it's almost like she got used to having some of those like white privileges that she had in the world before. And it's like she almost speaks about black people as if they are like other than her. It's almost like she thinks that she's like better than them. I don't know, she uses the words like they when referring to the other black people, and it's like, no, like you are also part of that community. But she's also had some bad experiences, you know, like with the black community not treating her well or treating her like she's other because she's also half white. But it is so interesting to, you know, get her perspective as well, because she has a very different view on this world, and she kind of wishes that things would go back to how they used to be. So I think it is really interesting to get both of their perspectives, and then to like get in the head of both of these characters and understand why they are the way they are and why they feel the way they do. And I'm just loving, oh my god, the writing in general. It's just so good. Like this is such a well-written, thought-provoking, and interesting story. There was already something in the plot that like really surprised me personally about their past and like how this daughter came to be and like what happened when she was younger. Like that was something that I was not expecting, and I was like, oh my god, like Jesus, like that is horrific, you know. So like there's already been things in the plot that have surprised me and that are pulling me into the story, so I cannot wait to see where this goes. Like I'm really enjoying this so far. I'll be meeting my mom here soon, and we'll be taking a cute little walk together, and then tonight I think we're going to be making some of the HelloFresh burgers that I have, which like, ooh, I'm very much looking forward to that. But I will update you with more thoughts once I get further in.
The same as when we left, clean cut underneath, like muslin and canvas. Still someone's coming back, crunch under my feet. You never really said it all till you said it all. Testing, testing now. Where do we go from here? Never really said it all till we say it all. Got time if not, but
how's it going? It is the next day. It's been about 12 hours since I last updated you because last night I watched the originals with my sister. We watched 5 episodes last night and season 3 is going so well so far. Episodes 9 and 10 especially just like really messed me up. Like, oh my god, those were really great episodes. And then this morning I ended up going to the gym. You know, like first thing in the morning, I just came home, I washed my hair, ate some food, and I just finished reading Sky Full of Elephants and like, holy shit, this is definitely 5 stars. Like easy 5 stars. You know, last night when I was reading it, I got up to page like 200 last night and I was getting a little bit nervous because after about like 150 pages in, I felt like the story was starting to change a little bit just in terms of like plot. I don't know, I was starting to lose interest just a little bit with the plot at about 150 pages in, but then once we got about 200 pages in, oh my god, it sucked me right back in because there was something revealed in the plot that I was not expecting. Like, I feel like there was a lot of things in the second half of this book that really surprised me. Like, I wasn't really expecting the book to go in that direction, but I think the social commentary in this book is just unmatched. Like, it is so good, but I love that we do get both the perspective of, you know, Charles and his daughter Sydney, and I like how they are viewing the world in different ways. I just think that getting both of their perspectives, it really adds so many layers to this story, and both of their characters were very, you know, complex, and they were very different, and they'd had a lot of different experiences throughout their life. Wow, oh my god, like, I love the arc of their relationship throughout this story. I mean, I love a good father-daughter story, especially for, you know, these two characters who, like, they were estranged at the beginning, like, they had never even met each other before, and so, like, I am a sucker for a good, like, father-daughter bond. Like, I just think it's really sweet and really beautiful and really wholesome, and, like, gosh, I was not expecting this book to pack the emotional punch that happened at the end because, like, there was a few moments at the end where I nearly, like, burst into tears. I was actually mostly listening to this while I was on the treadmill at the gym, and I had to, like, hold myself back from crying, like, 2 or 3 different times. I was like, oh my god. I did not think that I would get so emotionally invested in this, but there was something about the writing, like, the writing in this was just so stunning. It was so profound. Are you kidding me? That, like, last 2 paragraphs or so of this book, like, stunning, amazing, 10 out of 10, gold star. This book definitely gives me the same feeling that I had, you know, when I read The Measure last year, which ended up being like one of my favorite books of last year, because I love the idea of, like, let's look at a society if, like, this one thing had happened, or if this one thing just, like, changed the world, how would the world look different afterwards? You know, like, I'm starting to realize that that's one of my absolute favorite things to read in sci-fi, and I think in terms of, like, sci-fi with this book, I think at the beginning it feels very sci-fi because you're learning a lot about, like, what happened in the world and why there's so much speculation and confusion, and because the book is taking place a year after these events, you know, you're kind of, like, learning about how the world is different now. And then I do feel like the sci-fi elements come in really strong again at the end of this book. I think for me personally, like, this book is the perfect balance of how I like my sci-fi to feel, because it does feel like sci-fi at times and then it feels more like literary fiction at times, and there's, like, good characters that you can emotionally connect with. I love that it's like a coming of age story for Sydney in a lot of ways. This book just checks so many boxes for me, and I just really, really loved it. And I'm so glad that finally something that I had as, like, a 5-star prediction is actually 5 stars. Like, yes, let's go! Just to give you a little taste or a little sample of the kind of writing that I'm talking about in this book. In his dream, Charlie thought only of us, the noble we, not our dreams either, or even hopes, but the enormity, all the colors and energies and outcomes swallowed up to make a community of individuals never alone. No picket fences or pageantry, just open doors and all the space and time one needs to be oneself. We are energies, Charlie dreamt, constantly exchanging and mixing and charging. God, dude, the writing in this book is just stunning. It's so beautiful. Just, like, look at the amount of tabs that I had in this one, and I did some tabs for, like, the moments that I thought were just so gorgeously written and I really wanted to come back to it, and then I had some tabs for, like, moments that I found shocking in the plot, and I also just had some tabs for, like, really good character moments that I wanted to come back to. I could go on and on all day about how much I loved this and how much this really ended up working for me, and I'm so happy about it. It feels so good to finally read a 5-star book. So you'll have to let me know if you've read any of the books that I read in this reading vlog. Let me know how you feel about them. And also, please do let me know if you have any sci-fi book recommendations for me. You know, I am pretty new to sci-fi still. I mean, I have been reading sci-fi for so many years, but, like, it's just never a genre that I really dedicate a lot of my attention span to, you know? I don't think I've ever had a year where I've read more than, like, 15 sci-fi books in one year, and And so like I'm really hoping to change that this year because it is a genre that I'm just really feeling connected to right now, and like I want to explore more sci-fi this year. So please, if you do have any recommendations for something you think I could like based on what I do enjoy in sci-fi, I would love to know any of your thoughts. Don't forget to check out Heyday. I will have the link included down below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. Heyday is such a fun mobile game and I promise you're gonna love it, so definitely be sure to download it. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!